that at police stations? How are these robberies taking place, as far as you understand?
Well, Eastern Cape has got the most police station robberies, and the police, they get robbed while they're doing their normal duties during the day. It's a known fact. If you walk, most of the police stations, especially in the Transkei at night, if you try and walk in there, the gates are locked because you'll find one female police and one male officer only in the station. So these criminals are taking advantage of that because they know these stations are outnumbered. That's exactly what happened in Gobo during that robbery when the members got killed there. They find very few members at the station, and their safes are there, and that's how they became an easy target. So I think the minister should clean in house first. And as for security, private security reports to whoever is a police minister at the time.
Okay. Sbu, thank you so much for that insight. Certainly worthwhile to keep in mind as we go into the second hour of the show and get ready for that conversation. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm back with more of your calls.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The Bavarians want to display quality play to emphasize why they are called FC Hollywood. But BVB is courageous to cement a decent spot in the top half.
It's all or nothing. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be.
Catch one of the world's greatest football derbies.
The Klassiker.
FC Bayern München versus Borussia Dortmund. This Saturday, 12 April at 6:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the
game. Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
It's an interesting time with regard to the Trump administration.
South Africa, 60%, 30%, and they've got some bad things going on in South Africa. You know, we're paying them billions of dollars, and we cut the funding because a lot of bad things are happening in South Africa. The fake news ought to be looking at it. They don't want to report it.
Of course, everybody's doing a calculation and speculating on what could be included. The safest thing to do is to get confirmation from the US as to how they arrived at the number.
The African countries almost have to think of what I would call the coalition of the wounded, looking into various countries and saying who has been badly affected by the US and how can they open up the room for engagement on that.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo. Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Right, let me go to Mtata. Pasika, good morning.
Kudos to you, Cathy, and your production team for memorializing and immortalizing our liberation heroes. Uncle Zef, he was fondly called the Lion within the Africanist circles. Legend has it that he was given that name by the great Professor Sobukwe himself. And very few people here, Cathy, are aware of the fact that there was a trial which was called a Bethel 18 trial. And Uncle Zef, during the very same time, he was incarcerated. But strangely, he was cited as the accused number one in jail. The Bethel 18 trial is the one which culminated, or let me rather say, which came after the June 16 uprising. But what is critical for us here, dear South Africa, is that the man sacrificed his teaching career. He was serving together with the likes of Leapile Taunyane, Professor Ezekiel Mphahlele, and so many other luminaries. Personally, Cathy, lastly, I had a rare privilege of being a part of his funeral in Soweto. What I saw on that particular day was when the entire Soweto came out to give honor to the man. And as a young person then, I had a privilege of meeting Brahot Stix Mabuse. He was in the funeral. There was also the SACP General Secretary, Joe Slovo, and from the arts fraternity, I was privileged to get to know for the first time and to meet the artist that was Motingwane, who recited in the funeral, Africa My Beginning, Africa My Ending. Cathy, may the sun never set on such a great show like the Talking Point.
Oh, Pasika, thank you so much for that call. What a lovely call. And, as you're speaking, the imagery in my mind absolutely coming alive. You took us right to that moment in Soweto, and thank you. It is important that we're able to memorialize all of these individuals that played such a significant role in our country's history, and I think put in the building blocks, which is the foundation on which we stand today. Vuyiswa in Parktown North, good morning.
Morning, Cathy. Mandibulele for taking my call, producers. I'd like to open my contribution with just a few lines from the poem Don Matera, when he said, "This land must be healed. The warmers of the oven don't eat the bread. This land must be healed." The fact that you guys are playing clips of the liberation movement heroes. Monday you spoke Solomon Mahlangu. I happened to, on my relocation back home, I visited all these mothers. I went to Solomon Mahlangu's mother, Peggy Mlangen's mother. I went to Thea's Mashinini's mother. They were still alive. But Peggy Mlangen's mother, I understand she's still there. The misery that I found there, the lamentations that I found there, it pains my heart so much when only on the month of April, Freedom Month, that we play these clips and people go on platforms and sing Solomon Mahlangu. Just yesterday, the sister joined TMK. He dedicated his life for the liberation struggle. But the misery that those who contributed for the struggle, they are not well taken care of. America itself and other countries that I know, they take care for the veterans, except now the madness in the White House is stripping them of those rights. To me, it's a concern. All of them, these mothers, they told me we don't want to see journalists, we don't want to see political leaders, we don't want to see white researchers because we are ahead.
Yeah, Vuyiswa.
And this takes me to the current drama with GNU. They don't care. These are people that have got blood in their hands, of our brothers and sisters, our mothers and fathers, our families, Cathy. It's why this drama of people that don't care, they don't care. DA doesn't care as much as people are saying the ANC doesn't care. But who are they? These are the killers. These are the murderers that murdered our families. I visited Khotos Yanhlulo's wife. No one cares. These are the people that took us where we are. After 1976, the whole world will tell you, South Africa never became the same. But we've forgotten. We are dangling carrots. That's what we're doing. All what we want is power, ownership, control, at the expense of the blood of our families. This land must be healed. the warmers of the oven don't eat the bread.
So as we saw in Parktown North, we leave it there for this morning. As you can hear, quite emotional. And the one thing she's right about is just what happens and what has happened to some of these families. You look at somebody like Obab Robert and just the state of his family when his wife died in Grafrenet in the Northern Cape. You just couldn't believe some of the things and some of the experiences that she had been through, and just what it is that and how it is that she had been treated by, a democratic dispensation. So the pain that Sis Boiswa is speaking about, it points to that, is that there's just been this neglect in as far as it relates to some people and their families, and the cost, right, what they put into that sacrifice, and how that has been recognized by, should I say all of us, or should we say by government? Whose responsibility really should it be? All right, let's take the latest news.
In our top stories, Action SA's demands regarding GNU talks and 4 wanted suspects shot and killed in KZN. Good morning. Action SA has announced it will not participate in discussions regarding the Government of National Unity unless the proposed value-added tax increase is revoked. The party's statement comes amid growing concerns about the future of the GNU. This after the DA, which is the ANC's biggest GNU partner, did not support last week's fiscal policy framework. Action SA chairperson Michael Beaumont.
We're saying we're not available to talk about the GNU until such time as that tax increase is scrapped, because we made a very conscious decision that South Africa needs a strong opposition. Opposition parties have abandoned that space in the pursuit of government, and that is why we play the role that we do. And it would be difficult to see how going into the GNU with 70% of parties in Parliament in the GNU would really assist that process further.
A second student has died after an alleged drunk taxi driver ploughed into 11 students last month at the Nelson Mandela University in the Eastern Cape. One student died on the way to hospital. The second, a 23-year-old female student, succumbed to her injuries yesterday, bringing the death toll to 2. It's believed the students were leaving a campus event in the early hours of the morning when the driver allegedly rammed into them and tried to flee. He was arrested and has since been released on bail of 1,500 rand. He faces 6 charges, including culpable homicide, attempted murder and driving under the influence. He's expected to make his next court appearance on the 24th of June. 4 suspects wanted for cases of murder in the vicinity of Inanda were shot and fatally wounded in a shootout with police on the M4 highway in Umlazi, south of Durban, yesterday afternoon. KwaZulu-Natal police spokesperson Robert Nechihunda elaborates.
Police had gathered intelligence about the whereabouts of the wanted suspects, and when police pounced on them at a mall in Umlazi, the suspects sped off, and with police catching up on them, the suspects opened fire towards the police. To protect themselves and other road users, police returned fire. During the shootout, 4 suspects were shot and fatally wounded. No police officer was injured during the shootout. The suspects were found in possession of 3 firearms. The 4 suspects were wanted for at least 3 cases of murder in Inanda, 2 of which were double murders. The murders were committed in March and April 2025.
Johannesburg Water and City Power are continuing with their operation to disconnect residential buildings in the CBD that have illegally connected to water and electricity infrastructure. The entities are targeting several hijacked buildings in the inner city. Joburg Water spokesperson Nomusa Shabalala says this is part of efforts to deal with water losses, which also impacts on the utilities revenue. She says aging infrastructure is also to blame.
We are exploring private-public partnerships, working with National Treasury, of course, to ensure that there is adequate funding for the aging infrastructure that we have in the city. There are technical assessments that are done from time to time, so we are able to pick up if there are any illegal connections. How we picked up in this building, there was an excessive leakage, and that did raise an alarm, and we picked up that they had reconnected themselves illegally.
President Cyril Ramaphosa will today address the 17th biennial conference of the International Association of Women Judges in Cape Town. The conference themed Resilience, Women in Leadership to End Gender-Based Violence and Femicide will bring together approximately 900 judges, magistrates, legal professionals and policymakers from across the world to address the global scourge of gender-based violence and femicide through judicial leadership and activism. Kenny Mapanga reports.
Delegates are expected to deliberate on issues aligned to gender equality, judicial reforms, and women's leadership in the global justice space. In addition, there will be presentations from members that tackle issues of GBV, human trafficking, cyber violence, and self-care of judicial officers, amongst others. South Africa will host this conference for the first time under the leadership of the country's first woman top judge, which is Chief Justice of the Republic of South Africa, Mandisa Maya.
Recapping the top story, Action SA has announced it will not participate in discussions regarding the Government of National Unity unless the proposed value-added tax increase is revoked. The party's statement comes amid growing concerns about the future of the GNU. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.7 FM in Cape Town. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. Welcome to the second hour of the show. Coming up in this hour, we're going to be focusing for Citizens Corner on the private security industry. On the one hand, we'll look at some of the labor-related matters that many of those who are security guards have been raising with us, just around how their labor rights are often disregarded. And then, of course, we'll also take a look at some of the concerns that are being raised around the licensing that is often issued by the Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority. That's the conversation you can expect coming up within the hour. Before we get to it, some of your WhatsApp voice notes from the open line.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Hi, Cathy. Andy here. I'm a forex trader and I'm watching the rand very carefully. We need to keep this GNU together because if one of the parties leaves, this rand has to break 1997 to the dollar. And as you know, when these things break, they carry on. So I'm just scared that the inflation caused by a very weak rand will make this VAT increase look like nothing. So just from a personal point of view, I'm hoping the DA stays. I might be wrong, but that's the way it looks like it might go. Thanks.
What was politicians, guys? No, this one, like this Moose guy and this mashup, they signed with the ANC to adopt the budget. Now they're having press conference, letters and what going up and down, saying they're not gonna agree to the VAT hike. But the VAT hike is part of the budget that was tabled by the Minister of Finance. Because there's an uproar about the hike and we're telling them they sold out. Now they're going up and down thinking we are like them, stupid. Guys, these people need to start respecting us. For a change, they need to start respecting us. Come May, my money is gonna be charged for my Vodacom as well. Nothing is going to stop that. Hi.
Good day, Cathy. Anonymous here. Cathy, I'm listening to Zbu now. Zbu is very 100% right. I'm sending this voice note in advance. Maybe it won't go through in the next hour. Security, Sira is not protecting us. I'm also a security officer. The company that I'm working for right now, and it's working under department in the government. We've been working here for 4 years. We don't have contract of employment. They don't pay us annual bonus that we are entitled to. They don't pay us leave. They don't pay us sick leaves. I reported this to Sarah, but nothing's happening. Can you imagine, Cathy? So, Sarah's not doing well. It's not doing enough for us. Thank you, Cathy.
Cathy, my topic, my point is a little off topic, but related. If you take into consideration the recent marches all over the country for Baby Kwekwe, do you honestly believe there is no other underlying reasoning and emotions motivating these marches, such as the poor state of governance in our country? And do you not think that maybe the government is afraid of these uprisings happening because of their poor governance, and that is why they just want to disarm securities?
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The Saints are pumped up to fight even harder in search of 3 points on home ground.
And Smallbone has scored his first Premier League goal. Liverpool stood like statues.
Meanwhile, the Villains are chasing a win to secure a decent top half spot.
Tielemans to Rashford. Rashford fires it in. Oh, it's got in! It's turned over by Marco Asensio again. 2 from him, 2 for Aston Villa, and 3 points surely.
This is the Premier League. Experience a thrilling encounter between Southampton FC and Aston Villa FC on Saturday, 12 April at 3:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Night Talk with Oliver Dixon.
When leaders need to account, we call on them. When society needs to debate, reflect, and advance, we're here to have the conversation. Join me, Oliver Dixon, on Night Talk every Monday to Thursday from 10 to 12 midnight.
SAFM. Prime time all day long. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, it is 13 after 10 o'clock. Welcome to Citizens Corner. And we're focusing on the private security industry. My guest for this morning, Ali Malesa, who is the manager for complaints at the Private Security Industry Regulatory Authority, which is CIRA. So I will refer to it as CIRA for the rest of this conversation. Ali, good morning to you. Thank you for making time for us this morning.
Morning, Cathy, and morning to the listeners of SAFM.
Look, part of the reason why we had to get you into studio is because the number of complaints from those that are in the security sector, and when you look at the numbers, it makes sense, right? You've got a private security industry that employs over 580,000 people in this country. That's almost triple the number of police officers that we actually have in the country. And they're raising complaints about how they believe they're being treated in the industry, concerns around labor relations, and perhaps to maybe help us make that point, I'm quickly going to take Anonymous, who is a security guard. Anonymous, good morning to you, and thank you for agreeing to be part of this conversation. So you, of course, have been a security guard for some time now. Just talk to us very briefly about what your working conditions are and what the issues that you face in, your work of employment are.
Hello, how are you, Cathy? Hello?
Yes, I'm good, sir. You can go for it.
Okay. I am working as a security officer at George Mukari Hospital. We are not getting paid. Now it's for 3 months. They always dealing our paid. They say now they are going to pay us next week. That means it's 2 months, and say they're going to give us for 1 month. And they are deducting our provident fund, deducting our tax, UIF, but and without any the problem, they fire you as ever they wish. They can go take your uniform and go. And then another issue is, as I'm speaking from now, we are begging food at the hospital's kitchen. We are not have food to eat. Our master, the Tosha, how come a company like this gets tenders from the government whereas they are not complying? We are at the Department of Health. We have been treated badly. And I don't know why SIRA just keep quiet, because we pay SIRA each and every month. Year we renew our SIRA. And the other thing is they take each and every money from us and everything. But I don't know, because we are always complaining each and every day, but nothing is happening. That's why we say we need help. We are suffering a lot as a private securities. We are not getting anything.
And what's the name of the security company that you're working for?
But I tell you, a producer, the name of the security. I'm afraid, because they recognize my voice.
Okay.
Yeah, I tell him the producer everything there.
Okay.
This company, because when we look at even the management of the hospital, one of our management says he can't wa bona ntwena re understand o bua le motho wa management ya sepetlele re lona le ka rula le sa gole na re itsene sa company ya lo mara ha ba krea o re security una le problem ba bitsa rena ma security re tshwara batho ba le saiki eng o mongwe ke bua today o go betsi tata ba yo aba a tshwara molwetsi wa saiki maybe a look bua ka motho a o betsi maabane a bereka night shift o mongwe o ba a admitiwe sepetlele ba mo ba dije ko casualty ka molwetsi mara a re kry silo tšhelete ya rona ya megolo a re kry re tsena go gola ka February.
Okay.
Just imagine.
Okay. Anonymous, thank you for painting that picture for us. Ali, the concerns that are raised by Anonymous are certainly not unique to him. These are complaints, and it's in line with complaints that we get on a regular basis. Number one, let's first begin with, how is this situation allowed to happen like this in the first place?
Cathy, it's a very grim picture. We don't allow it to happen. Surely I sympathized with those security officers who are actually providing their services, and at the end they don't get their remuneration. But at SIRA, we have inspectors who are on the ground, who are actually visiting all these companies. We do receive, it's not actually a complaint that is unique on its own. We do receive such complaints on regular basis, and we make sure that we involve, be it the employer or the person who the company is contracted to make sure that these people get a remuneration. What the anonymous person needs to do is actually to ventilate this matter to our office, and we will definitely send out inspectors to go and actually deal with this particular matter. We have in the past even engaged our CEO, wherein we visited one of the municipalities, whereas security guards went for months without being paid, and we had to go to the municipal offices, meet the actual officials who are responsible for security, to actually understand the reasons why are these people providing services and not being paid. And we were successful in our meeting. The employees were paid, and though there were issues with the budgeting as far as that municipality was concerned, but it is not an isolated incident.
But Ali, he says that he says that he's raised this issue with SERA. I don't know, maybe you missed part of what he was saying, because he also made the point that he feels that he pays his membership for SERA every month, but the services that he's getting from you in terms of being able to hold employers accountable, that is simply not happening.
Cathy, we do hold employers accountable. We have our own tribunal wherein these security businesses have contravened our code of conduct. But what I'm saying is we have a vast scope of work that we have to actually work on. There is almost 17,000 security companies that are registered with SERA that are actually active and employed over, like we have said, over 600,000 security officers. So such complaints, when they get to our office, we make sure that we record them, we give them reference numbers, and then we go all out and investigate them. We understand the fact that they are actually paying annual fees on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, and that's the reason why we exist, and that's the reason why we are actually having to work on this mandate.
Given the numbers that you have shared, are you overwhelmed?
We are not necessarily overwhelmed, but we will need.
It sounds like you are.
We are not necessarily overwhelmed. We will actually need more numbers on the ground. We actually have over 300, less than 300 inspectors countrywide that are responsible for investigating all this misconduct by the security businesses.
So effectively, if you have 300 investigators and you're dealing here with about 17,000 registered security companies, and over 600,000 that are employed,
yes,
to the sector, that ratio, it doesn't match up, because what it means is that in the end, you don't have enough of a presence nationally to be able to fully hold companies accountable.
We do have that presence, Cathy, though the ratio doesn't actually talk to the number of inspectors that we have. We are the industry is growing on a daily basis,
and growing at a very rapid rate.
At a very rapid rate, and it's also upon us to actually ensure that whilst the industry is growing, we need to employ more and more.
But how are you allowing the industry to grow when you are still sitting with these issues that exist within the current dispensation, within those companies that are registered, and you are unable to fully resolve those issues? How are you still issuing licenses when, if we look at it, you're still sitting with complaints that are unresolved? Security companies, as we've just heard from, or security guards, as we've just heard from Anonymous, who are listing all of these things that employers are not doing, that they are supposed to be doing, and you are the ones that are supposed to be providing oversight over that. So you're not able to do that sufficiently, but yet you're still registering new security companies.
Cathy, there will always be unscrupulous people or companies that will trade within our space, and that we cannot avoid. But those who are actually qualifying to apply for registration in as far as providing these services concerned, we will register them. But what we need to do is also to impart ourselves and also empower our inspectors to make sure that when they go out there, they are able to address all of those complaints. Many of these complaints are not actually unique.
My contention is that these unscrupulous individuals that you're talking about are taking advantage of the fact that you don't have enough capacity. That is the gap.
It might be the case, but what I'm saying is we will always have these people who will come into the industry, comply with our legislations in as far as registration is concerned, but do things differently. But as the regulator, we actually want to make sure that when we go out there, we attend to all of those complaints that get reported to us. We have even lately introduced the firearm unit that actually deals with all the companies that have that are using firearms in their services. We also have what we call a task force unit that will basically run and quickly attend to any matter that relates to to our mandate as a private security sector. So we are actually employing and creating units within our organization to ensure that such complaints are dealt with. But we will always have these complaints. The issue is how do we deal with them, and how quickly and how often do we deal with those complaints? We will.
So let's
the minute we leave here, I will be giving you all the contact details at the web and our website, wherein these people could actually lodge in all of those complaints, and you will have to call us back, and we can come and account in as far as our operations are concerned.
Yes, but let's talk about that. I mean, you are the complaints manager, right?
Yes.
So you deal with this on a day-to-day
Yes,
basis.
yes.
So let's talk about your caseload then. On a, I don't know what kind of metrics you sort of use to measure your productivity and outcomes. But if we're talking about complaints that you're receiving on average, how many complaints are you receiving from the industry in as far as security guards who are raising labor-related issues such as not being paid, their benefits not being paid over to whether it's the pension funds or whatever the case might be? How many cases are you dealing with on average?
We're receiving on average over 2,000 complaints that we need to register and go and investigate.
How often is that?
On a monthly basis. We receive over 2,000 cases that we need to actually go out and investigate. But you need to bear in mind that one of our mandate as CEDA was to investigate complaints relating to wages. And that function or that responsibility has been taken over by the National Bargaining Council, of which we don't have the powers to actually investigate on that. Once such complaint comes in, we refer them to the National Bargaining Council for investigation. But in as far as other cases of misconduct, we adding to that of wages and provident fund not being paid over or bonuses not being paid. We are receiving on average on a monthly basis 2,000 of those.
How many of those are you resolving?
We will resolve actually 60% of those cases, though we do have a turnaround time in as far as resolving those cases are concerned. I have said it that the ratio in as far as comparing it to the inspector is not that high. What we do tell our complainant is that your complaint will be resolved within the first day of your laying complaints and 90 days as maximum days for resolving our complaints. And some of the complaints will require us to register cases with subs. Some of the complaints will require us to go to our tribunal, wherein we will call in the employer to actually sit with him in a tribunal and ask him questions, and then he can respond to all of those questions. And then we can reprimand that particular individual or that particular company, or fine that particular company, and to go and correct whatever the cries were about their employees.
The private security industry is now seen as a very lucrative industry.
Yes.
Are there any plans to cap the number of registrations of businesses in the industry?
There is no such. What we have done as per our legislation is to put in requirements for registration, and any other person will have to comply with those requirements when he wants to open that business. And there are different specification or sectors within our industry. You will have cash in transit, you will have armed response, you will have patrolling, you will have those who are dealing with locksmith, you will have those who intend to come in and do the training for the private security sector. So we don't limit. If you are coming in, we put our requirements before you, and if you comply, we issue with the certificate. The issue, the issue with us is for us to go out there and enforce compliance, make sure that those that we have given them accreditation to provide these services are doing that within the confines of the law.
So basically, because of the growing need for private security in the country, you could well have a situation where in the next couple of years, the 17,000 registered companies has probably doubled, and there's no thinking around this is where we possibly have to cap it. That's not at least something that's on the table for now.
We are not thinking of capping the applications that are coming in.
Okay.
It's a service that people are making money out of it. It's a service that people are employing our people, and our people are able to provide for their families. So,
all right, Ali.
So we wouldn't be keeping. What we do is we put in stringent requirement for them to get into our space.
I'm going to pause you there. We're going to continue the conversation shortly. It's time for your latest headlines.
Thank you, Cathy. In the news headlines on SAFM, I am Onde Lambana, and a very good morning. 6 Eskom employees have been arrested after they were found in possession of Eskom property worth 1.5 million rand in 2 separate locations on the north coast of KwaZulu-Natal. The NPA in the Western Cape says the 50-year-old man who was fatally shot inside Randburg Magistrate Court yesterday wasn't accused in a criminal case. Earlier reports indicated that he was a witness in a case. And Action SA has announced that it will not participate in discussions regarding the Government of National Unity unless the proposed value-added tax increase is revoked. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 19 rand 63 to the dollar, 25 rand 10 to the pound, and 21 rand 63 to the euro. Markets in Asia were mixed at the closing bell. The JSE mainly weaker during mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe also trading lower this hour. Gold's trading at $3,040, platinum $926 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $60.95 a barrel.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM. #SAFM Talking Point.
Joining us this hour, Manager for Complaints at SIRA, Ali Malesa, is our Malesa. Apologies for that. Ali Malesa is our guest for this morning, and we're talking about some of the challenges in the industry. So you've heard there around their turnaround time in terms of the cases and the concerns that security guards are able to raise with them. So, Ali, one of the concerns that was shared earlier on this morning was around private security companies who are well registered with you, licensed, compliant, at least as far as the papers are concerned, but then go out to employ people who are in the country without the proper documentation. And they do that knowing that they're able to pay these individuals below the minimum requirement. Are you aware of this phenomena?
We are very much aware of this phenomenon, and we have joint operations with the Department of Home Affairs, with the subs, and whoever that is found, be it you are undocumented or a South African, as long as you are found providing a security service and you are not registered with CIRA, it's a criminal offense. We open a criminal case against you and against your employer, and then you have to face the full might of the law. So we have operations that are taking place on a daily basis. We have operations that are taking place more often. We had one at Soshanguve yesterday that was taking place to ensure that whoever is wearing a uniform in this country is registered with CIRA and has complied with all the minimum requirements, including the training of the service that is providing.
So,
and yes, we really do clamp down on those, more especially the undocumented and illegal foreigners.
The difficulty again that we come back to, Ali, is the rapid rate at which you are onboarding companies and giving them licenses. When there seems to be this question around your capacity, because as long as companies are being registered, while the system and the framework within which they're operating, and I hear the point that you're making around there will always be unscrupulous individuals, but here's the cost. The cost is that you then have these individuals able to access firearms or whatever else that they're able to access as part of what they have been approved for. That creates a very dangerous situation and a dangerous security situation for us as a country.
It does in a way, but as I said, it's a service that needs to be provided. And we don't just register. We will register them and expect them to comply in as far as our laws are concerned. And if they don't comply, I think that's the point that I need to actually emphasize on, is that we don't just only register them and then leave them to operate, and then when they contravene our law, we just leave them as is, or we take them to tribunal. We have a duty as a regulator to also withdraw that registration. And there are many companies that we withdraw based on the transgression that they're actually doing in our space. We don't just register, the number increases and increasing and increasing. We register, at the same time, if they contravene our law, we withdraw their registrations.
The point is that when you are then withdrawing this registration, it sometimes is not a result of your own investigation or your own inspectors leading to the finding that these people are in contravention, right? It's not work that you are doing necessarily on your own.
No.
You're relying on whether it is whistleblowers, whether it is people that are saying said company is doing 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's where the issue is for me, is that if there aren't people that are coming forward to sometimes let you know about where there are discrepancies, you're not actively going out to find those discrepancies out on your own.
No. We have inspectors who are on a daily basis going out to do normal inspections. Even if there are no complaints, we can visit. We do visit companies. We do make appointments and visit companies.
How often are you able to check whether these companies are compliant?
On a daily basis, we have inspectors who are on the ground doing this investigation.
Yes, but how long does it take you to get through the 17,000 that are registered, right? Because if you have your 300 inspectors going out every single day, what is the target that you're able to set for yourself? On an annual basis, can you say that we have been able to check on all of these 17,000 companies that are registered with us, and we can confirm that out of them, X amount are compliant, X amount are have a particular standing?
Cathy, that information is actually you can even find it in our annual report. We do set targets on a yearly basis as far as our normal inspections are concerned. We do have whistleblowers who are coming in and said, there is this company that is not compliant. We do have complaints that will come in and say, we are employed by this company. There are people who are not registered in that company. What do? We go out and do investigations, and as a result of either our normal inspections or inspections that are triggered by complaints, we do withdraw certain business registrations based on the information on our investigation that we have conducted. But on a yearly basis, it will depend on that particular year to say what target are we setting ourselves? We can set our target for 20,000 inspections that we were to conduct on that year, but we might not reach it or get to it because our normal inspections, we might stop conducting normal inspection and focus on inspections that comes in as a result of complaints or whistleblowers.
So you then deregister the businesses. What about the individuals behind the businesses? Because of course, today I come in as Cathy CC and you deregister Cathy CC. Tomorrow I'm Cathy MCC. And then what happens?
Cathy, when we withdraw your business, you remain on our database. The day that you come in and want to withdraw, the system will tell that Cathy's company was withdrawn based on this misconduct and you're not eligible. But what we do when we withdraw a company, but it will depend on circumstances. We even withdraw the registration of those directors of those companies, but it depends on the circumstances.
So that means that there is a situation where those different directors do come up. They do creep up again.
In some instances,
under different companies.
I can give you an example. We will withdraw your registration based on the fact that you were owing us millions of rands that you didn't pay. And when you come in again, the system will tell us. And then we will say to you, we withdraw your company based on the fact that you are owing us this much. Pay this much, and then you can continue operating. Yes, they do. But there are instances where we will withdraw the company and even withdraw the registration of those directors. And when you register a company, the first thing that needs to happen is for us to know you as an individual that you are registered with CIRA, and the system will tell if you have ever been involved with any company as a director or as a security officer, and therefore we will actually register you based on those elements.
You must be aware of course, the rise of the use of private security in this country.
Yes.
You'll go to a funeral, or even, I once gave an example of just being on the way home on the N1, stopping at one of the stops, one of the fuel stations, and you walk outside. There's a contingent of individuals. They're not dressed in any uniform. They're just wearing black. They're armed to the T. Mm-hmm. And they're waiting outside the area. They filled the parking lot. And these individuals claim that they are representing a particular security company. That's what life in South Africa has become.
Yes.
You see it at funerals, you see it at weddings, you see it at public gatherings, because it is a way in which, I don't know, those that sort of use it in that way can explain why. Are you not worried as CIRA about this?
We are very much worried. We are very much worried that the people who are just masquerading around with big guns and that's the reason why we are first introducing, as the regulator, the regulations that has to do with firearms. Some have seen our director in one of the TV channels yesterday emphasizing on the need for us to actually have regulations as a private security sector to actually deal with this phenomena that is happening in our country, where you see people walking around with big guns without us even knowing what the reason behind them carrying such big guns were. So the firearm regulations that we are introducing that are actually have created some talks are there to actually deal with these individuals who are actually carrying these big guns and driving around in our country.
The firearm regulations, of course, that you're talking about are the proposed amendments to the Private Security Industry Regulation Act, right? And those really, those are the ones gazetted by the police minister just towards the end of last month. And they speak to prohibited weapons and what it is that security guards will effectively be allowed or not allowed to do. Amongst them includes not being able to use weapons during assemblies, during demonstrations or protests, crowd management, It also includes carrying firearms in public areas such as your shopping malls, your restaurants, your taxi ranks. And of course, there's been mixed reaction to this. You, as Sarah, what is your position on these amendments? What do you want to see happen?
I wouldn't dwell much on that because our executive are actually ventilating on those issues. But what our director has said yesterday is that for one to carry a particular a weapon, there should be a risk analysis that is taking place for one to actually carry or apply for that particular weapon. But you must also note, Cathy, that we don't accredit the use of firearm as an industry. It's the function of the SAPS and their firearms control a unit. But our regulations are actually talking to the kind of weapons that should be used in our industry. And we need, if you were to apply in our space to operate a business wherein there will be a use of firearms, what the director is actually saying, which he has said in yesterday, is that you need to do a risk analysis and present it to us to say, this is what I will be doing. And based on the risk analysis that has been done, these are the kind of weapons that I think it might be.
Is Sarah not the one that gives the approval, though?
No.
Do you not give the licensing?
No. We don't give the licensing to use firearm in the industry. The licensing comes from SAPS. But one of the requirement is that if you are to apply for guns or the gun licensing at SAPS, you need to be registered with CIRA and have a company. And there are other requirements to say the people who are going to use those firearms must have firearm competencies. They must be CIRA registered. They must have been trained.
Yes, but once the police see your certification of a company,
yes,
they freely then issue the firearm license.
No, they don't freely issue the firearm license. They have their requirements on their part.
Okay.
They need to know where those firearms are going to be kept. They will confirm with us the people who are actually going to use those firearms, are they trained and all of those things. They have their requirements that side. It's only part that this company is going to use these firearms in a private security sector space. And CIRA, these are the things that we want you to confirm in as far as this business is concerned. We will confirm the registration of their directors, the registration of the people who are going to use these firearms if they have the relevant training, and if the company complies with all the CIRA laws. But in our regulations, we are saying the kind of firearms that we are going to use, it must come from us based on the need analysis that you will have done.
Okay.
Yes.
I've got lots of callers for you. So I'm going to ask you to hang 10. Everybody that's on the line, I'm going to ask you to please try and keep it as short as possible so that we get as many of your calls in as possible. In fact, let's do this. Let's take a quick break and then we'll get into our calls.
Upgrade your TV game with the SABC TV License Rewards. It's your golden ticket to VIP treatment. Imagine signing up at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za, breezing through a few steps, and bam! Instant reward, just for being you. Plus, pocket up to 500 Rand back. That's the cherry on top. But wait, it's not just about the cash. We're talking about sweet deals and epic rewards. Think discounts on all your favorite things, from shopping to travel and entertainment. Your payment unlocks a world of fun. So, why wait? Dive into the excitement. Join the SABC's TV License Rewards at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za. Hit those buttons and watch your TV experience level up. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments, they make a difference.
What is your money doing right now? Is it lazing around in that other account because you're not sure where to move it for premium growth? Well, let's make it work hard in a Standard Bank Money Market Select investment account, where we'll grow it with a nominal interest of up to 7.9% on a minimum deposit of 100,000 Rand. Plus, you get access to your funds anytime. Open yours online or on our app today. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. We're in conversation with Ali, who is with SERA. I'm taking your calls. Anonymous, he's the manager for complaints at SERA. Anonymous, you're in Midrand. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. Hello, Cathy.
Yes, Anonymous, go for it. Go straight into it.
Yes, Cathy. SERA is the same as all other government entities, because there are a lot of things that SERAs are not covering, to be quite honest. And you've got car guards all over the malls in South Africa. And you ask yourself, all these car guards, and I'm not trying to be xenophobic, but all these car guards, they are not South African. And they keep on going to these people and checking if they are registered or not. But they are still there, Cathy. They are still there. Then you come to the issue of training schools, Cathy. Years back in the early 90s, when SERA was called SOB, there was no way that you can get your grade ECD in 1 week. But now you get it. You got ECD in 1 week, unless if maybe I've missed something or I'm still an old school or somehow. But that's something that gives us a poor presentation to the clients when you employ someone that has all these grades in 1 week.
Okay.
It's happening in CBD Johannesburg. So they know that, Cathy. They know. It's not like they don't know. You have the pricing of the clients. For example, I've got a security company, and I'm competing with X security company. The pricing are different. Why? Because the company or the company owners, they are robbing the employees, especially the foreign people who comes into work as a security guard.
Okay, Anonymous.
So you ask yourself, Cathy, how is it that they are monitoring all these things and they are missing the most important stuff that are very crucial to our security industry? Thank you.
All right, Anonymous, we'll leave it there. Soli in Gauteng, good morning. Good morning, Soli. Okay, I'm moving on from Soli. Pagamani in Soli, is that you? All right, Pagamani in KZN, good morning.
Morning, Cathy, how are you?
Good, go for it.
Yeah, the problem is compliance. SERA doesn't do anything with companies. I'll make you an example. I've been in the security industry since 2010, and I've always been job hopping, Cathy. I've worked for more than 5 companies now. The last job that I've resigned on the companies was in Zululand. I'm telling you, if you go as far as Zululand, there's no compliance there. I can tell you that 90% of companies there, they don't comply. The employer is supposed to pay me, to rate me 26 Rand, 44 cents an hour. Guess what? The employer rate me 11 Rand 66. They are paying me 140 Rand a day instead of 317 Rand a day. What do you call that? What do you call that? And then when you complain to employers, guess what? They say, do whatever. You won't do anything. Go to SERA, report us. They won't do anything. SERA doesn't do anything, as I'm telling you, Cathy.
Yeah, so they're not even afraid. They're not even afraid of being reported.
I'm telling you, Cathy, when you go to retail sector, security industry on retail, 95% of those companies, they are not complying. Because even if you check, the retail companies, the guarding on retail side, there are small players there. The big companies on the security, they just leave that sector for small players because they are not complying.
Okay, Pagamani, let's leave it there. Solin Gauteng, I understand you're back on the line. Good morning.
Morning. I would like to ask something regarding the sick note. Recently, we received a mandate that says we must pay for our sick note. Whenever you are sick, you have to pay 150.
Do you want to check if that's true or not, Soli?
I wanted to check that one now.
You can go ahead, Ali.
I know nothing about that. If you are sick, you as per the labor laws of our country, you provide a sick note and that will be it. You'll be paid for that day as long as you are sick and you have provided your employer with a sick note. You don't have to pay anything if you are sick. The only person that you need to pay is the doctor.
Yes, they said I must provide a doctor's note, then I will be penalized 150.
Yeah, it's wrong. There's nothing in the law that talks about that. They shouldn't be doing that. You need to report them to the National Bargaining Council.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Paul, you're in Limpopo. Good morning, Paul.
Hi, ma'am. How are you?
Good, Paul. Go for it.
Okay, yes, I'm a security officer. I'm regarding the guy, Ali is a good liar. Because most of the companies that are registered here, the owners of the company are those who are board members of the CIRA. So how can we discipline the same people that are sitting on the board and take the decision regarding the security officer? So the guy is lying. This is a company that I was working on. So the company was not complying. When you call the CIRA office, you find that those people, they don't even tell you the straight answers. And when you send they used to send what you call the inspectors. Those inspectors, when they are coming on site, they are going to the office and drink the tea. After that, they drove off. So they didn't come to the employees and speak to them, hear from what the employees are going through. So my problem is that most of the company owners are the same people who are taking decision on behalf of the security industry. So
all right.
He's lying when he says he's disciplining the company.
Paul, out in Limpopo, I guess the concern there would be around fronting, right? Around certain members of the board or even executives that, are behind companies that are registered with CIRA. Budinkongi, you'll be the last caller. Good morning.
Thanks, Cathy. Cathy, I'm going to be quick, and you know me. Cathy, I'm very concerned about the private sector. Take for instance, how do you identify when a person is a proper or is not a proper security guard? Say, for instance, if you go to places like Mayfair, you'll find a security guard with dirty clothes standing with a donkey bill, and that one is a security guard. And you go to the inner city, you find a security guard with clean uniform, with two cards here. One is CIRA, one is a card that shows that he's a security guard in that precinct. So what is the easiest way to detect whether this person is a proper security guard in terms of whether the company is complying or is not employing people who are not registered?
Really great question, Budinkonke. Thanks for that question. I'm going to have to leave it there. We're running out of time. Ali, I'm going to give you a chance to respond to the questions raised to you.
Thanks, Cathy. Let me respond to this one regarding the carrying of cards. By law, you are required as a security officer, if you are in the employ or if you are actually posted in any vicinity, to carry an identification card. That will be the card that you have been issued by CIRA. The other one that you might be carrying from your company might be complimentary. But by law, you are required to carry a CIRA identity card, which will confirm your names, your identity number, and the type of grades that you have in any other specialized course. If you don't have that identity card with you while you are actually in the employ of any business, it's a contravention of our act, and your company and yourself will be actually taken to task. We have inspectors who are actually going on the ground doing what we call individual inspectors. As long as they see you providing a security service, be it you are wearing a uniform or not wearing a uniform, they will go to you and ask you questions and want to know if you are registered or not registered. If you are not registered, in our operations together with subs, we arrest you there and there, and we actually go out and get to find out who your employer is, and that employer will also be arrested and put before the courts. So the other issue of grades being offered, 3 grades being offered in a week, like I've said in our beginning, that you will have these people who are taking chances in our industry that will try by all means to defraud our systems by issuing fraudulent certificates. When it is found that you are actually registered with CIRA and you are providing such, we will open a criminal case against you, and your training center will also be deregistered with us as CIRA. The actual period for training, in as far as grade E to C is concerned, it's actually 3 weeks, and you must be in class for that whole 3 weeks. And there was another issue around fronting.
So if you're registered for the 3 weeks and you are working for a company that has been licensed to operate firearms, do you have to undergo separate training for the firearm?
Yes, you need to go a separate training for firearm, which you'll be conferred a certificate by the firearms control unit by SABS, which is called a firearm competency, to actually confer you to use that particular firearm that you have trained for. And then that's when you come into our industry and go and look for a job, having that certificate to say, I've been trained to use this firearm. Wherein when CIRA inspectors comes in and do their inspections, when they find you carrying that firearm, you must be able to produce that firearm competency certificate together with our CIRA cards to confirm that you are registered with us as CIRA.
So effectively, if let's say it doesn't matter what industry you're in, if you've undergone 3 weeks training, that's entry level.
Yeah, that's the entry level. It's grade. Those are entry level grades, and then you need to specialize within our sector. You can do cash in transit. You can do firearm training. You can do retail. You can do. There's a whole lot of them. There's locksmith. There's
okay, all right.
There's a whole lot of special courses that you can undergo and work within our sector.
Okay, we're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time for this conversation. Ali Malesa is manager for complaints at CIRA. That's where we're going to leave it for this hour. Up next, your latest news update.
Thank you, Cathy. On the top stories, 6 Eskom employees arrested in KZN and Johannesburg. Water continues to disconnect illegal water connections. For SAFM News, I am Onda Lambana, and a very good morning. 6 Eskom employees have been arrested after they were found in possession of Eskom property worth 1.5 million rand in 2 separate locations on the north coast of KwaZulu-Natal. Provincial Police spokesperson Robert Nechiwunda says the first 5 suspects were arrested near Empangeni, whilst the 6th was arrested in Mukholokolo. Nechiwunda says they were found allegedly in possession of various items, including smart meters and copper.
Police gathered intelligence about the suspects who were in possession of suspected stolen property, and police tactically approached a house at Ngwalezane area. The property was stolen during a business robbery at a site in Sabuza Reserve on 17 March 2025. Further investigations led the police to Matenenshana area in Makholokolo, where the 6th suspect was arrested with more Eskom property. He was also found in possession of a prohibited firearm and ammunition.
The NPA in the Western Cape says the 50-year-old man who was fatally shot inside the Wynberg Magistrate Court yesterday was an accused in a criminal case. Earlier reports indicated that he was a witness in a case. His devastated brother, Ncedile Langa, says they were concerned about the latest court appearance as there was a failed attempt on his life during another court appearance at the same court. Langa believes the shooting could be related to the ongoing taxi conflict in Muizenberg as he was a taxi owner. The lone gunman escaped the premises and police have launched a manhunt for the suspect. The Hawks say the fight against transnational organized crime must be prioritized in order to reduce South Africa's high crime rate. This came out at the second day of the National Police Summit underway in Ekurhuleni. The three-day summit is looking at adapting policing strategies to a changing criminal landscape and enhancing crime-fighting methods. Hawks head Godfrey Lebeya.
Transnational organized crime is multifaceted. You have got things like human trafficking. In human trafficking, there is also the element of violence, because once trafficked, some of these things are exposed to rape. You have got the weapons that move from one jurisdiction to South Africa. You have got those weapons that then come to be utilized in cash in transit, police killings and the like.
Action SA has announced that it will not participate in discussions regarding the Government of National Unity unless the proposed value-added tax increase is revoked. The party's statement comes amid growing concerns about the future of the GNU. This after the DA, which is the ANC's biggest GNU partner, did not support last week's fiscal policy framework. Action SA's chairperson Michael Beaumont.
We're saying we're not available to talk about the GNU until such time as that tax increase is scrapped, because we made a very conscious decision that South Africa needs a strong opposition. Opposition parties have abandoned that space in the pursuit of government, and that is why we play the role that we do. And it would be difficult to see how going into the GNU with 70% of parties in Parliament in the GNU would really assist that process further.
Johannesburg Water and City Power are continuing with their operation to disconnect residential buildings in the CBD that have illegally connected to water and electricity infrastructure. The entities are targeting several hijacked buildings in the inner city. Joburg Water spokesperson Nomusa Shabalala says this is part of efforts to deal with water losses, which also impacts on the utilities revenue. She says aging infrastructure is also to blame.
We are exploring private-public partnerships, working with National Treasury, of course, to ensure that there is adequate funding for the aging infrastructure that we have in the city. There are technical assessments that are done from time to time, so we are able to pick up if there are any illegal connections. How we picked up in this building, there was an excessive leakage, and that did raise an alarm, and we picked up that they had reconnected themselves illegally.
Rescue workers in the Dominican Republic say about 100 people have died after a roof collapsed at a concert in the capital Santo Domingo yesterday. Among the dead is the merengue singer Ruby Perez, who was performing at the Jet Set Club. The BBC's Louis Fajardo has the details.
Media in the Dominican Republic are pointing out to the fact that there was a fire in this building a couple of years ago, apparently caused by lightning. But of course, there's no official indication yet of what could have been the reason. Of course, there's going to be a lot of investigations. The owner of the nightclub has appeared on national media saying he's fully cooperating with the authorities. But again, at this moment, it is many more questions than answers to what could have happened.
Recapping the top story, 6 Eskom employees have been arrested after they were found in possession of Eskom property worth 1.5 million rand in two separate locations on the north coast of KwaZulu-Natal. I am Ondelambana for SAFM News Headlines at 11:30.
The Bavarians want to display quality play to emphasize why they are called FC Hollywood. But BVB is courageous to cement a decent spot in the top half.
It's all or nothing. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be.
Catch one of the world's greatest football derbies.
The Klassiker.
FC Bayern München versus Borussia Dortmund. This Saturday, 12 April at 6:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
April is Freedom Month, A month to reflect, celebrate, and move forward. SAFM is bringing you powerful stories, insightful debates, and voices that shape our nation. Stay tuned to SAFM, where freedom, history, and the future meet. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Good morning, Cathy. That's private security regulatory authority is just a useless body. They are just out for profit. They don't care about the well-being of security officers. For me, I'm stuck with a debt of 7,000 Rand from SARS. From the previous company, they never paid any money to SARS. Yeah, that's a lot that's happening there. They're just exploiting us. No medical aid get deducted, but it's a useless medical aid scheme. Thank you.
Hi, Sis Cathy. We are paying monthly fees and yearly fees. Companies are paying on their own. Training centers are paying on their own. This amounts to millions of rands. Pesira has still got the same offices they had 25 years ago when I started security. They're not employing more staff to do their job more efficiently. I don't know what the hell are they doing with all these millions that we're coughing up month in, month out.
Yes. Morning, Cathy. I was agreeing with your voice note there, the previous one, about the 3 young boys on their bicycles from Begersford to Cape Town. Gupta BMX, the GOAT, and Queen of the Road. What those boys have achieved is something remarkable. Out of nothing, they started with little support, but now everybody's railing behind them. Shout out to people that are helping them, the boutique hotel. There's also DJ Kari there. Shout out. What they have achieved, it's amazing. It proves that nothing is impossible in life. You just have to be determined and dedicated. You can achieve it all. Yeah, so last night, their last stop when I saw was at the crossing of Beaufort West. So yeah, I'm following their story and it's amazing. Thanks.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.9 FM in Port Elizabeth. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point, 12 after 11 o'clock. Welcome to the final hour of the show. Yeah, thanks for bringing us the story around the bike riders. We certainly are going to be looking into it. Hopefully, we might even be able to bring them on air just to talk about the journey and the experience that they've had so far. Well, to round up the show then, the final conversation for this morning is looking at some of the latest submissions that have come. This is from unions and civil society organizations around the new draft code on good practice on dismissal. And there have been concerns raised by this particular piece of legislation under the Department of Employment and Labour. Joining us for this conversation is Patrick Mohlahlana, who is a coordinator at the Orange Farm Human Rights Advice Centre. Patrick, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And joining us on the line, Dr. Dale McKinley, labour activist and researcher at the International Labour Research and Information Group. Dr. Dale, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy, and to your listeners. Always a pleasure.
Perhaps let me begin with you so that you can give us a part of, I think, just that framework that we're working within. What is this new draft code of good practice on dismissal?
Well, basically, this is coming out of the section Schedule 8 of the Labor Relations Act. It deals with all the different aspects of what should happen when someone is dismissed for various different reasons, whether that be for incapacitation, whether that be for insubordination, or whatever the case might be. And essentially, these amendments, this code has been there since the 1990s. And it has been amended a few times. But these latest amendments, and the reason why there's controversy, is because there's a feeling that they basically are being biased towards employers. Let me give you one example of disciplinary processes leading up to a dismissal. So in this case, for example, these new draft regulations would basically make it possible for small businesses not to have to follow a disciplinary process before they dismiss somebody. So they would essentially be exempt. It also, for example, then allows for employers to consider whether or not the employee is consistent with the culture of the organization or whether they fit into the organization. That's a very subjective analysis. So you can imagine that some of these amendments, which we can talk about in more detail, are going to impact negatively potentially on workers, particularly more casualized or short-term contract workers. So there is a real concern that some of these amendments, which have been negotiated more or less behind closed doors, are employer-friendly and basically are biased against the workers and erode some of the more immediate and more important rights that workers won back when the LRA and the Basic Conditions of Employment Act and others were formulated in the 1990s, and that this is a regression in terms of labor law.
To what extent, Dale, does it take into account concerns that have been raised by industry around how difficult it is for small businesses and others? And you know, I sort of didn't want to use this example, but I'm quickly trying to find another one, and I can't find it. So I'm just going to go for it, but you'll go more for the essence of what I'm saying. If you look at the DA and some of the concerns that they have had around employment and legislation around employment in this country, they believe that it effectively makes things difficult for employers to come on board, because even in the instance where, you know, somebody is not complying or they're not meeting whatever expectation you had, it's very difficult to get rid of them. And these are some of what has been described as, you know, the red tape that they want to see unlocked and making it easier for businesses to do business, including on the labor aspect of things. So do you see these amendments as a response to concerns of that nature that have come up?
Yes, I think certainly. So just for listeners, you know, these amendments were negotiated in a committee of NEDLAC. And basically that was dominated by business, government, and a section of labor representation. So the first thing to note is that the majority of workers are not represented, or their voices were not heard in this. So yes, they definitely reflect, I think they clearly reflect the complaints by particularly employers and businesses and political organizations like the DA and others, which are saying, look, it's difficult to fire somebody, it's difficult to get rid of them, let's make it easier. What this raises, though, irrespective, we can have a legitimate debate on whether or not some of these amendments are necessary or not. But I think what the larger concern is that you're just casting listeners' memories back to the 19th.
All right, I'm not sure what has happened to Dale there. We'll try to get him back on the line. While we do that, Patrick, do you want to weigh in? How are you responding to these proposed amendments?
Okay, thanks, Cathy. I hear what Dale is saying. Our part or our input on this new labor amendment, our response is, as we have already done our submissions, is to say they must do away with this new amendment bill. We are not supporting it and will not support it.
Hence, we are now campaigning and mobilizing community to make them aware of this, because these new amendments that are they want to put them in place, they are going to work against the employers, even the unions. They are going to lose a lot of members, because remember, once this new amendment is in place, unions they won't have a much representative to represent the workers at workplace. Because what we normally used to know is that when a worker is charged for some sort of misconduct, no matter what happens is there will be a charge, and then there will be a notice to inform the employee when to appear for hearing. But with these new amendments, all those processes, they fall away. The employer can simply call you in and have a negotiation with you, or they call it a dialogue in their draft bill. So it's going to be a dialogue between the two parties. Then when the employer decides to say, no, thank you, the decision that we are taking is to dismiss you. And mind you, even in the same amendment bill, you can't appeal the decision of the employer anymore. You can't go to CCMA anymore. You have to go straight to labor court. Now, with this amendment, they are making sure that unions and employees, they don't get any success on their matters to be heard. Because remember, most of our workers, they are lay people. They don't know this thing. They don't understand this thing. As much as this discussion has started 2022 April, most of the people, they are not aware of this, that this discussion was ongoing. Even some of the federations, union federations, they were not even aware of this. So now our problem is we don't understand as to how did these negotiations went on and keep on discussing this for so many years without other trade unions being aware or the unions being aware.
Which category of workers do you think is going to be the most affected by this legislation?
I think all workers. All workers. I cannot exclude to say these workers or that workers. Because remember, this labor law, it covers all of us. As long as we are an employee at workplace, you are one of the workers. So it's also impact on you.
Dale, do you agree with that view? Because, of course, some people who find that they have permanent contracts, they believe they have a level or a layer of security that perhaps casual workers, temporary workers, contract workers don't.
Yes, sorry, Cathy, for the break in communication. But yes, I think that the contract workers are more at risk. That's not to say that the permanent workers are not at risk as well. But let's take an example in these new amendments. So, for example, what these new amendments say is if a worker is on probation, and then usually normally there's, let's say, a probation period of 3 months, then that worker doesn't have the right to consult a union if he or she is faced with a dismissal charge. And also that there is, as mentioned, as Patrick mentioned, that there doesn't necessarily have to be a formal process. Now, most casual workers who are being made permanent are often kept on short-term contracts for up to 3 months. And what many employers are doing is right before the 3 months end, they're then retrenching the employee or they're changing their conditions of employment so that they can keep them on contract in perpetuity, so that they don't have to make them permanent workers. And this essentially, these kinds of amendments would make it much easier for employers to continue that kind of relationship where they basically not only could victimize contractors or casual workers who would have no representation, but also where they would be able to continue within that probationary period to continue basically making them vulnerable on an almost extended probationary period over a long period of time and never make them permanent. So it does, I think, have a greater impact on those that are more vulnerable in the workplace, which are oftentimes contract and casualized workers.
This idea that an employer is going to be able just to call you in for a conversation, and based on that conversation, that could be the last of you in terms of the job that you might be in. It's concerning, Dale, very concerning.
Absolutely. And I think, and I was, before we got cut off, I was going to remind listeners of going back to the 1980s. during the apartheid era, when unions were formed, and there were many, many struggles. And one of the key struggles was basically to ensure that employers couldn't just dismiss workers willy-nilly for whatever reasons, which was the case. They didn't have to go through this kind of process. That's why we put in place these laws, and workers fought and sacrificed a lot to get these laws in place. Now, it's really, really disappointing and surprising in some ways that, in particular, our government is being so nonchalant about eroding some of these very, very basic rights. So I think this debate that you mentioned in the previous, it's not to say that there might not be areas for improvement in the labor laws where it might make it a bit easier for workers and employers to basically go through a process around dismissals. But what these amendments do is, generally speaking, they favor the employer. And that's why employers are welcoming them. If you look at the statements issued by BUSA, if you look at the statements issued by the Employers Association, they're welcoming these amendments. They think they're great, whereas worker organizations don't think they're good at all. So that should tell you a lot of that concern. And I think it is a concern, because if what we're doing is we're going backwards and saying that now workers, simply because of the operational requirements, for example, of and what does that mean? Or simply because the employer doesn't feel like they fit into the culture of the organization, whatever that means, it brings back a lot of the concerns that we have around intelligence and a lot of our other amendments, a lot of bills, which give power to officials, which give powers to bureaucrats, in this case employers, to essentially decide and more or less get themselves around, run around a labor law, run around things. And then once you do that and they act and they fire or they dismiss somebody, it's very difficult for the worker, as Patrick mentioned, to get redress, because now the CCMA is being closed to a lot of different workers. You have to go directly to the labor court. You have to have legal representation, and many workers do not have the knowledge nor the resources to do that. So in general, it's a power imbalance. And this gives more power to the employers, which is a very concerning development.
Patrick, what do you want to see happen now?
Cathy, to start with, what we want to see happening is, to start with, this labor amendment should not be a sign-off. We don't want it. As we are saying, we need this labor amendment to be scrapped, completely scrapped out. That's what we want to see. And the other thing is, instead, they should give more power to employees to protect themselves. Their protection must come first. And my wish was to say again, the injury to one and injury to all should come back. Because even this CCMA we are talking about, CCMA is not operating the way it's supposed to operate. CCMA, the reason why it's a CCMA is there, it was for the employees, the employers, to fire the employees in a nice way. Just to say, remember the injury to one and injury to all before. You couldn't fire the employee just like that. But with the CCMA processes, it's only you and the employer there, without a representation before. Remember, this thing of a representation, it just came in now. Now, we're also saying, because of all those things and the network processes, CCMA processes, those departments or those forums, we also call upon those forums to be dismantled.
So what do you see as the future and the role of the unions going forward? Because, this has happened under their watch, right? And we can't run away from that it happened while they were there.
As I said to you, Cathy, when I started, unions, they are going to lose more and more members if this new amendment bill comes into place. Remember, the new amendment also says, in that dialogue between the employer and employee, it's only you and the employer. Union is not supposed to be there. It's not. The employee is not represented. Let's start with that. CCMA, because normally the unions, they represent the employees at CCMA level. You can't even go to CCMA and take their matter there or file the R711 application, for instance, because if you are aggrieved and you need to appeal, you have to petition the labor court. Now, we are talking about lay people. For example, the security officers, as I was listening this morning, most of the security officers, they are crying. How do you expect a security officer petition the High Court or Labor Court for that matter? That person doesn't have money, doesn't earn much. I was listening to the radio. They sit months and months without pay. Now here is the employer. I call him. He said, "No, I'm enough with you. You've got no more job anymore." You can't go to CCMA. You have to go straight to Labour Court. That's what the CCMA, the new amendment say.
Okay. Patrick, thank you so much. I think you've raised those issues very clearly. Dale, let me wrap up with you then. The way forward from here on, and again, to what extent do you think that unions are very much going to be left out of the conversation around what labor rights in this country look like going forward, if these changes are to be effected?
I think the first thing we should say is a word to COSATU, because COSATU is represented in NEDLAC, and so is FEDUSA, and so is NACTU, but not SOFTU. So the question is, COSATU must come out and say, do they agree with these amendments? Are these representative of the members that they have, and this is the perspective? Because if they are, if they're saying they're going to defend these amendments, then that is a problem, I think, for a lot of unionists themselves. And that would give indication that the majority of workers and unions are not being represented properly. And I think Patrick's point about, unions losing quite a lot of legitimacy with their members, if they're not protecting their interests, well, then people don't want to join a union. And I think that's the key thing, is whether the union leadership, which negotiated and sat in these committees, is actually representing their workers' interests or not, or if something else is going on politically. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing in terms of what should happen is we have this constant challenge in our country of lack of public participation. This has come up with numerous pieces of legislation. The Constitutional Court has ruled several pieces of legislation unconstitutional because of the lack of this. So the first thing is have the public hearings. Make sure that workers' voices can be heard. Do not try to do this in secret. It doesn't work. You're going to have legal problems as a result of this. So do it properly. Once we have those public hearings and once people are able to, then the conversation becomes a much more public one, and we can have a proper debate, and the politicians can see where workers' interests lie and those in the rest of civil society as well. In that context, once those are, then the process to adopt or amend the legislation and this will be much better informed by those realities.
Okay.
If we simply have a process which is secret and only represents the views of minority, we're going to have more conflict in the workplace.
Dr. Dale McKinley, Labour activist and researcher at the International Labour Research and Information Group. And you also heard there from Patrick Mhlaba, who says that they'll be mobilizing his coordinator at the Orange Farm Human Rights Advice Desk. Thank you both for your time. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of the latest news headlines, we do a wrap of the G20 series.
Thank you, Cathy. In the news headlines, with heavy rains and flooding affecting the northwest province, some roads outside Mahikeng were closed, forcing drivers to take alternative routes. 6 Eskom employees have been arrested after they were found in possession of Eskom property worth 1.5 million rand in 2 separate locations on the north coast of KwaZulu-Natal. And the Home Affairs Department says more than 30 of its officials have been dismissed since July last year to date. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech, or contain violence or explicit sex. If you think we are not living up to that code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. PO Box 142365. Craig Hall 2024. Fax to 011-326-3198 or an email to bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more information, please visit www.bccsa.co.za. April is Freedom Month, a month to reflect, celebrate, and move forward. SAFM is bringing you powerful stories, insightful debates, and voices that shape our nation. Stay tuned to SAFM, where freedom, history, and the future meet. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
You're listening to The Talking Point. So it is a Wednesday, 11:30, which means we're wrapping up as far as the G20 series is concerned, keeping abreast with all of the developments around the G20. Lerato Tsebe is an independent African researcher. She joins us. Lerato, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. How wonderful to hear from you.
Well, it's great to have you on. What a week it has been, right? Difficult to keep up with all of the developments, but I see that one of the big things that you want us to focus on are the latest U.S. tariffs unleashed on, should we say, the whole world, really, but perhaps focusing more on how this has impacted those in our area, which is the SADC region.
Yes, so, Cathy, on average, every single member state of the SADC regional body, which is 16 countries, has been hit with a tariff of a minimum of 10% from the United States. Now, this is with the exception of two countries, number one being Zimbabwe and number two being the Seychelles. Now, you must remember that Zimbabwe is not eligible for AGOA member state participation. All the other 16 countries within this trade imposition are, the only other person who's excluded from this has been the Seychelles. Well, the Seychelles is actually the wealthiest country in Africa, and technically speaking, they're not a member of the Rand Monetary Union, and therefore don't actually qualify for access of tariff-free goods of entry into the United States. So yesterday, SADC has released a statement, obviously in response to President Trump's imposition of tariffs and in existing tariff rates, and they're saying that they note, obviously, the inclusion of tariffs as of yesterday, and that they will put this up for discussion and for review at the forthcoming meetings of the Committee of Ministers of Trade and the Ministerial Task Force on Regional Integration in June, which they will then forward to the Council of Ministers for a decision in August. But I think that's a bit too late for me. I think the June issue is far more pertinent, but it's good at the very least that this has drawn concern on a regional basis and not only specifically coming out of South Africa at this moment in time.
Much of the conversation in light of these tariffs has looked at AGOA and the relevance, the relevance of AGOA. What is SADC saying about that particular deal? Because, of course, the AGOA forum is supposed to be held later this year. Do you think that there's still going to be investment from countries into that process, given where things are?
Look, Cathy, I think this is no longer a question. It's a good question that you're asking, but it's not a question for African member states to answer, because they are not the ones that are being held at the mercy of the AGOA piece of legislation. This is a decision for the Trump administration to make themselves. Now, with SADC is saying is that they want to discuss this, and they're putting this seriously as a discussion point for the agenda meeting coming up in June. But Cathy, I think the bigger question here is, what does this mean for the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement for African countries? I think if anything, it really propels them to have a sense of urgency about implementing the act and also mobilizing it at a far more rapid pace. So that's the real issue at hand here, in my humble opinion.
Let's then move to the G20. They did promise that by the time we get to the conference towards the end of the year, some of the meetings would have taken place in every province in the country. And the tour, shall we call it, the G20 tour of South Africa continues. Let's talk about what has happened this past week.
Well, we had a very interesting week. Again, the SA Sherpa, Dr. Zane Dango, met with his US counterparts last week. They had their first sit-down face-to-face meeting as Troika members. So it was a meeting between Brazil, South Africa, and the United States. So Brazil obviously is a country that hosted the G20 prior to us. South Africa currently, and we're supposed to hand over the G20 in November to the United States. This past week, the president actually on Monday announced that very famous economics professor Mariana Mazzucato will now be a technical expert during South Africa's G20 presidency, and she will be a special presidential representative for Task Force 1, which is inclusive economic growth, industrialization, employment, and reduced inequality. She already currently sits on the President's Economic Advisory Council, and she's no stranger to South Africa's economic challenges, should I say. Additionally, G20 Sherpa Dane Zango met with Brazil's G20 Social Summit coordinators this week as well. They're now discussing South Africa's vision for the upcoming Social Summit, which we get handed over from Brazil. So those are some of the things that transpired this past week. And as of today is the last day of the second Digital Economy Working Group and the second Employment Working Group, which meets for a week until Friday. Currently, tomorrow, Cathy, let me say rather, Information and Communications Minister Sol Malatsi will meet to host a meeting in Gqeberha, to discuss the Artificial Intelligence and Data Governance and Innovation meeting for the next 2 days. This is obviously a hot topic, I think, Cathy, for everyone globally right now. And Minister Malatsi is urging all G20 member countries to regulate artificial intelligence. And he's saying that he wants to see an increase in the number of languages that are used by AI systems. So, yeah, that's what's going to be happening this week.
As we again process the news of these tariffs, more and more voices are coming out to lead South Africa in the direction of alternative markets. This is for products and goods that are likely to be impacted by these increases. The G20 position presidency of South Africa has been pointed out as one that could be a point of leverage, particularly in opening doors for new markets. Is there any sense that you're getting, Lerato, that these evolving and and rapidly shifting geopolitics are also impacting the conversations within the G20 real time? I know it was the case about 2 months ago when we had the EU representatives here, and there was this very strong show of support, to say that it almost gives South Africa that comfort to say, don't worry if the US drops you, we are here, but is it going further than that?
Absolutely, Cathy. I think obviously a lot of the smaller regional groupings, let's say BRICS, for example, BRICS member states, obviously this is forcing them, again with greater urgency, to really recalibrate their trade positioning and the volume, at the very least, of intra-BRICS trade that they conduct with one another. And I think more importantly, Cathy, a lot of the countries within the global south are now really this forces them rather, let me say, to start paying far more attention to supply chains on a regional basis and amongst one another. I think on the sidelines, definitely, this is going to be a very, very long-standing and very serious conversations that G20 member states are going to be having with one another about how to increase and expedite trade agreements amongst one another. But this may, for me, Cathy, this is not necessarily a bad thing. I think that the global south economies, which within the G20 grouping are the largest economies, essentially, of the 19 countries, it really forces them, Cathy, to introspect a little bit more, but also to demand a better position for themselves on platforms at the World Trade Organization, and also to be far more innovative and creative and substantive in their positioning in wanting to realize and increase their own economic well-being. And I think that this may really be a very it's coming obviously at an incredibly erratic moment. But politically and economically speaking, moving forward, there's a lot of lessons to be learned here, and it is very much the moment of the global south right now.
Well, it has been interesting, even noting responses such as that from our own country, commitment to multilateralism, not wanting to retaliate in as far as the tariffs are concerned, saying that we still very much subscribe to the World Trade Organization and what it is that we have signed off there in terms of that particular framework.
Absolutely. I think, Minister of Trade and Industry Parks Dow and Minister of International Relations, Ronald Ramola, they held that joint press conference on Friday, looking into this very issue that you are discussing right now. But they're saying that, them saying essentially that the reciprocal tariffs essentially nullify the African Growth and Opportunity Act, and that these sweeping measures affect several sectors within our economy, specifically, obviously, the automotive industry. But that, again, we need to start, they're saying that we need to start talking to our other counterparts looking east, even outside of China. Let's say Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, and start really, again, reinforcing those trade relationships. The good thing about all of this, I think President Trump really has our eye on us as a country, but that I think a lot of our counterparts and friends, both within and outside of G20 member states, are really extending a hand and, saying to South Africa, look, you're not alone. We understand. Let's talk. Let's all see what we can do. And that's been really wonderful to see, is sort of, the relationships within multilateral forums continue to sustain themselves, even outside of what's going on in the continental United States.
I'm not one to ruin a good kumbaya moment, Lerato, but as long as it's not translating into what we need, then to what end is it all? Lerato Tsebe, unfortunately, we're out of time. She's an independent researcher and, of course, running the G20 series with us, which we bring for you every Wednesday at 11:30. All right, on that note, it brings us to the end of the show for today. Talking Point, back with you again tomorrow between 9 and midday.
Not all MBAs are created equal. At Henley Business School Africa, we deliver career growth and advancement that goes beyond borders. As South Africa's only global business school, our internationally accredited MBA connects you to 100,000 alumni in 155 countries. Ranked #1 in the world by The Economist for alumni network power, Henley is your gateway to a global career and the confidence to lead anywhere. Ready to make your mark? Visit henleysa.ac.za.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
It's an interesting time with regard to the Trump administration.
South Africa, 60%, 30%, and they've got some bad things going on in South Africa. We're paying them billions of dollars, and we cut the funding because a lot of bad things are happening in South Africa. The fake news ought to be looking at it. They don't want to report it.
Of course, everybody's doing a calculation and speculating on what could be included. The safest thing to do is to get confirmation from the US as to how they arrived at the number.
The African countries almost have to think of what I would call the coalition of the wounded, looking into various countries and saying who has been badly affected by the US and how can they open up the room for engagement on that.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo. Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105 FM in Polokwane.
The book reading. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAFM presents another episode of the book The Thing with Zola by Zibu Sitole, read by Lerato Mvelase.
I'm sure you already know that I want to talk about Mbali, Oguhle said, blowing out her breath. I think my first mistake was misrepresenting myself and my intentions, she admitted. Yes, Zola agreed. If you'd been honest from the beginning, things would never have gotten to this point. If I'd known anything was going on between you and Mbali, I would have steered well clear of him, but you chose to manipulate me instead. I don't appreciate that. Surprised by Zola's candor, Oguhle took a sharp breath in. She didn't disagree, even though when she tried to steer Zola away from Mbali, in her mind, she'd been protecting a possible friendship with her new employee. Clearly, she hadn't gone about it the right way. I get that, and I'm sorry. I shouldn't have burdened you with my hurt. To be honest, I panicked. Oguhle said. Zola hummed, waiting for Oguhle to get to the point. Oguhle, sorry, but you're beating about the bush. You've showered me with platitudes, but I still don't understand why we're even in this position in the first place. Oguhle was taken aback. She hadn't seen this feisty side of Zola, and she was beginning to understand what Mbali saw in her. Zola could stand up to him, challenge him in a way Oguhle knew she never would, never thought she could. I'll start at the beginning, Oguhle said nervously. And the more Oguhle explained, the worse Zola felt for her. She was glad Mbali wasn't there. She would have hated witnessing Oguhle having to face him after everything they had put each other through. And Zola was relieved she didn't have to physically face Oguhle either. Even after hearing Mbali's mother talk about Oguhle, the reality was much more than Zola anticipated. Mbali had been Oguhle's first love. It was only natural that she'd had expectations. So it turns out Mbali only called it a break to spare my feelings, Oguhle continued. He'd fallen out of love with me, but he was too much of a coward to tell it to me straight. I thought we'd end up together, and every time I thought someone threatened that, I lashed out. With you it was different. I know Mbali. I know how he woos a woman, and when I saw him try it with you, right under my nose, I needed to put an end to it, she said. Zola could piece together the rest of the story herself. Mbali had made a move on her, and Oguhle caught on before she had and tried to nip it in the bud. Oguhle, if I had known that, I would have never even had entertained the idea of him, Zola said truthfully. I would have told him myself that what he was doing was wrong, and I wouldn't have any part of it. I'm so sorry I was part of something that hurt you so much. On opposite sides of the phone, the two women sighed simultaneously. The conversation was heavy and Zola was starting to sweat, but at least everything was out in the open now. I think you should know that Mbali has never said a bad word about you, Zola said. Every time he has spoken about you, it has been with love. Even though things haven't worked out between the two of you, I know he cares about you. But it isn't enough, is it? Oguhle said. Because even after everything, I still love Mbali. So what now? Zola asked. If you still want to get to know Mbali, I don't blame you. He's a great guy. I won't hold it against you, and I won't stand in your way.
Chapter 23. A Clean Slate. Zola sat on the couch staring at the TV, but not watching it. The only thing on her mind was Ogushe's words. She didn't understand Mbali at all. He might be a great guy, but how could he have been so cruel to Ogushe, and then also so kind? It was obvious he cared for her. It was in the way he spoke about her and the things he did. But in his attempt to protect her from heartbreak, he had completely devastated her. By the end of their conversation, Zola had hardly recognized Ogushe's voice. Ogushe had cried and heaved and worked so hard to stop herself from sobbing that her confident voice had become nothing but a hoarse whisper. And Zola couldn't shake a feeling about Mbali that she couldn't really name, a curiosity about who he was. Despite herself, she'd found herself wondering what it would feel like to be held by him, what his hands would feel like on her body. What thoughts passed through his mind when he saw her, what his kiss would taste like. These feelings came to her in a rush, as if her suspicions about him and Ogushe had blocked them all along. This was not the romance she had wanted for herself. In fact, right now she wanted no romance of any kind. But every now and then, in the past week, she'd found herself thinking of Mbali, of the way he laughed, of the smell of his cologne, of just him. She didn't know anybody like him. Still, she had never been so conflicted. There was no way she could trust herself to keep a level head when she spoke to him. Not yet. Zola sat with her feelings, soaking in them, trying to understand them, but she was stumped. She needed a sounding board, and the first person she thought of was Zozo. She would never have thought of telling her ditzy cousin anything until recently, but like everyone in her life of late, it seemed she had misjudged her.
Hey, cuz, what are you doing?
Zola typed. If Zozo was with Thabo, she knew it would be hours before she replied. But to her surprise, Zozo replied instantly.
Thabo broke up with me.
Zola gasped. She had never liked Thabo, but she knew Zozo adored him, and she really had thought he'd love Zozo too.
I'm so sorry, cuz. Do you want to grab some lunch and talk about it?
Zola offered. Again, Zozo replied quickly.
On my way.
Zola got dressed in a hurry, pulling on a long, flowy dress that always made her feel beautiful and some strappy sandals. When Zozo arrived, she was devastated, as Zola had imagined. Weeping hysterically, the younger woman walked through the gate and coughed and spluttered as she dragged herself across the front yard and through the door.
Zola, can you believe it? I loved Thabo when he had nothing. But he wins a bit of money at the casino and suddenly he wants to leave me.
Zozo shouted. Zola helped Zozo into a chair and got her a glass of water, which Zozo gulped down before immediately starting to howl again.
Are you sure he broke up with you, Zozo?
Zola asked.
What did he say?
Zozo pulled her phone out of her bag and scrolled through Thabo's social media to find a post he'd made the night before. She showed Zola the screen. It was him, all right, dressed in tight acid-wash jeans skins and an off-brand Uzi t-shirt with his arm around a tall, curvaceous woman in a short black dress. She was posed in an almost professional way while he stood with a goofy grin on his face. Thabo had captioned the picture. When you can afford better, you choose better. Zola scrolled up and down, trying to find where he had said anything about breaking up with Zozo.
Zo, where did he say anything about you?
Zola asked. Zozo shook her head and snatched back her phone.
He doesn't have to. He's supposed to be on a boys' trip in Krugersdorp. They went to a casino and he called me to tell me he'd won 100,000. Next thing, I see this post and now I can't get a hold of him.
Zozo sobbed. Zola took the phone and looked at the picture again. The woman was standing in front of a car with a large bow on it.
Zozo, I think he just bought a car. Zola said, laughing. He didn't choose a new girl, Zozo. He chose a new car. Zozo snatched back the phone and zoomed into the picture, narrowing her eyes. This is a new car, isn't it? Zozo sniffed. She flicked her finger over the screen and opened one of Tabo's friends' pages. There they were, all the guys piled into a second-hand Golf GTI, all grinning stupidly. Zola smiled. Well, that was dramatic.
That was another episode of the book The Thing with Zola, written by Zibu Sitole, read by Lerato Mvelase. The book is available online at www.penmacmillan.co.za and in all leading bookstores countrywide. It is broadcast on SAFM at 11:45 Monday to Thursdays on The Talking Point. It is produced for the station by Vovi Patala, read by Lerato Mvelase. Technical production, Wiseman Manmele, Nanda Koza, and Tato Mapuruma.
Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.3 FM in Rustenburg.
It's 12 o'clock on Wednesday, the 9th of April, 2025. A very warm welcome to Updated Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour.
It is us men who are perpetrators, who are violators of women's rights, who must lead this fight against gender-based violence.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says that the task of ending gender-based violence and femicide should not be the responsibility of women alone, and
I would like to reiterate that there are no winners in a trade war or a tariff war. Protectionism offers no way out. The Chinese people do not provoke trouble, but we are not afraid of it.
And China has rejected an ultimatum from U.S. President Donald Trump that it withdraws its retaliatory 34% tariff on U.S. goods. And coming up in sport,
Pirates turn in the CAF Champions League.